Welcome to Sonic Dorms. Today's show, I've got a very special guest, part of a new band. Well, actually, not a new band, but a band that he is new in. The band is Art of Anarchy. They got their new album out now, Let There Be Anarchy, which is fantastic, by the way. I'm talking to the great, the legendary, at least in my book. May I call you legendary? Jeff Scott Soto. To me, you're one of the best rock vocalists
Dude,
out there
you can
to
call me
this
anything
day.
you want, but with an introduction like that, the interview's over. I'm done. I mean, what am I going to say to top that?
Stop. Really though, you have a very distinctive tone, and that's something that I look for in any artist. My favorite singer of all time being Freddie Mercury, very distinctive voice. I mean, to me, the voice really when it comes
Beat me to
to
the
what I
punch.
look for.
You absolutely beat me to the punch with that, because anytime I hear somebody, when anybody says that about my own voice, I harken back to when I didn't feel I had my own identity yet. Like even when I started with Yngwie Malmsteen 40 years ago, I didn't have the voice that I wanted people to know and hear yet. Of course, I was in cover bands, and I would mime, I would mimic other singers. I would try to sound like them when I did covers of Kiss or Scorpions. I always sang it the way they sang it, and in my head, I sounded just like them. But I didn't know where my voice was. I didn't know what my voice was. So even on the first Yngwie record, or the first two Yngwie records, I was thinking this is more metal. This is more representing the harder side of music. I need to represent, my voice needs to represent that. So I was just like grasping for like Bruce Dickinson meets Dio, and I was trying to put those two voices together to have my own voice. And when I listen to it now, it sounds so forced. If I just sang with my voice, it probably would sound a little more natural, as opposed to I'm trying to really form the words that the way they did it so naturally. But when you brought up Freddie, that's exactly who I use as my I guess my sort of role model, in terms of not only is one of my favorite singers of all time, but he also has that identifiable voice. When you hear Freddie, he could be even singing background on somebody's album or a song, you know that voice. And I strive for that, exactly that. All the years, especially all the growing years, I strive for an identity or identifiable voice. Now there's even my stepdaughter, she's going to be 21 in a few months. But even when she was like 8 or 9, she could pick my voice out singing backgrounds in a choir of other voices. You're singing on this. She would know. Or if I played her something from when I was in my 20s, even into my 40s, she knew my voice, because and that's where I finally knew I had that identifiable sound. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. The great thing about that is that, across your career, everything that you've been a part of has had its own distinctive touch, courtesy of you and what you bring to the table as a singer alone. So going back, one of the things that I like to do, especially for first-time guests of the show, for
Yeah.
Sonic Dorms, is to revisit the origin. And you brought up a bit of that just now. So where did it all begin for you? What were your earlier memories or your earliest memories of falling in love with music in the first place?
Well, the crazy thing is I didn't get into hard rock or metal until way later in life. I literally I was so young, or it was so early on, my liking or my acceptance of hard rock and metal, before I got the Yngwie gig. I was only listening to hard rock and metal maybe 2.5 years before I started singing for Yngwie, which is crazy to think about, because it sounded like I was weaned on this stuff, and that was my music. I listened to only R&B, pop. I listened to everything from the Little River Band to the Bee Gees to the whole disco scene. The Saturday Night Fever soundtrack was my end all be all. I didn't listen to any rock when all my friends were in the Kiss and Cheap Trick and Ted Nugent. It was noise to me. I couldn't stand it. I thought, like, oh my God, how do you guys like this? I absolutely love these bands now. I gained and learned so much from all of them. But back then it was completely out of my wheelhouse, until much later, when bands like Journey came along, or bands like Toto came along. Now they sound like the wimpier side of rock to anybody that listens to metal and stuff like that. But for me, it was kind of heavy-ish music, but with white soul kind of singers. Steve Perry was totally influenced by Sam Cooke, which is the stuff I listened to. Temptations, Motown. Lou Gramm, for instance, his voice was so soulful. Bobby Kimball from Toto, all these soulful voices, you can hear the black R&B influences in them. And that's when it finally resonated. It's like, you can marry the two worlds. You can have hard rock guitars and R&B soulful kind of singing. That's when I finally started getting into rock. And then it started all creeping in, the Van Halen and the Judas Priest and the Iron Maiden. It finally started resonating and making sense to me. So yeah, it was a slow burn for me. And this is probably another reason why I didn't really think I had that kind of identifiable voice just yet when I was doing hard rock and metal music. And I mean, I learned so much from Freddie. The guy, he's such a chameleon and changing his voice to every color of the rainbow, and then colors that didn't exist, because they did everything from opera to blues to rock to metal to disco to you name it. Queen did it all.
Yeah, that's why I consider them to be the perfect band, is because they tackled pretty much anything and everything, and they owned it too. They would own it, even if
Absolutely.
even if they it was a critical misfire, so to speak, or
Right.
commercial misfire. They owned their mistakes. They, if you want to
Absolutely.
call them that, because
Not
they
me.
went into that with gusto. They were like, "This is
Right, right,
our
right.
territory now."
And
So
that's the kind of singer I wanted to be. It's the kind of artist I wanted to be, not just a singer. I wanted to be well-rounded enough that you can't pigeonhole me, you can't stereotype me. I wanted to be able to say you can put Jeff Scott Soto singing for Journey or Metallica and everything in between. And that's, I always strive to be that kind of singer. And it's kind of funny because people say it all the time. It's like he doesn't sound like the kind of singer that could sing for Journey or that could sing for this or that and the other, but neither do other singers. Can you imagine Steve Perry singing Metallica or James Hetfield singing Journey? It's they have their identifiable things, but I always strive to be able to tap into all the different resources and things that I love musically.
you bring up something really interesting too, considering that you came from more of that pop R&B dance background musically earlier on. What by the way, Saturday Night Fever soundtrack rocks, if you ask me. So
Thanks.
so
I agree.
but was there an idea early on in your mind that you would have rather gone that path, gone into that type of music, that genre, more dance, more pop oriented?
No, because then I feel I was cheating myself. I never wanted to be a singer or an artist that just went in with the blinders. Again, having Queen and Freddie Mercury as your role models is a blessing and a curse, because obviously they got away with it, but they got away with it because of the trials and errors. You try to do that, or anybody else trying to do that, it's going to sound like, what are you doing, dude? Stay in your lane. Pick one or the other. That you can't do all these different things. And I thought, why not? Who's to say I can't sing everything that I want to sing, everything I'm influenced by? So, but I get bored easily. If I had to just choose one lane, I would get bored doing that. I would be disinterested, and you would see it and hear it in my performances. So I need all the different spectrums, all the different colors of the rainbow to be able to tap into. Otherwise, I'm bored. I might as well get out of music completely.
Get that. So you're an eclectic music fanatic, you're an eclectic music listener, and a lot of that, facilitates into just where you've decided to go in your career and branch out in that sort of way.
I think we all are. I think all musicians and all singers are. We're eclectic and they like different things, especially now. Back in the day when you go on tour, for instance, and you had a CD wallet, you can only bring like 12 or 24 albums unless you bought the big book of 96. But you had a limited amount of music you would bring. So the last thing you want is your buddies rifling through your stuff. Go, why do you have an ABBA CD? Why do you have Robbie Neville? And you have all these different things that you probably just keep your collection to the genre of the band you're touring with, so you don't get kind of ridiculed. But now, since the invention of the iPod, and then obviously with streaming and everything, you can have a library of music genres off the table at that point. And that to me is more important, that people get to show that they listen to so many different things, they're influenced by different things, because that's the thing of the past now. It's You're almost ridiculed if you only listen to one style or genre of music now, because it just shows how limited your capabilities are going to be.
That's the beautiful thing about today too, is that, I mean, for example, take yourself. I on For those that follow you on Instagram, for example, if you do these workout, or you were doing these workout albums of the day sort of things, posts where
Yeah.
you'd say, "This is the album I'm working out to today." And you've had everything. I mean, you had a Damn Reed Network on album, the first record, which is brilliant. Bruce
Yeah.
Fairburn produced that one. Great stuff. But again, it exemplifies just how, we can be more open-minded these days about sharing everything
Yeah.
that we're into, no matter what the genre is, really.
And that side never left me. When I got into rock, I still Prince, Janet Jackson, the Jacksons, all the Motown, that never left me. So bands that were coming out that use groove, they use funk, they use R&B as an influence, even more so, I gravitated towards that. Living Color, Extreme, you know, all the bands that you could hear that funky, groovy side, that R&B dance or black influence. That was it truly, it was holding me like this, like, yes, this is my music. This is where I live, but I still loved everything else in between.
That's wonderful. When did you find your voice? When do you remember the moment in time where you discovered your true voice within, a band or a song that when was the moment where it hit you and you said, this is who I am. I'm going to embrace it from here on out.
I think early 90s, because that's when, after I left Ingve and after I was trying to kind of reinvent myself, that's when I realized I needed to focus on music that makes me happy, and music that makes me feel creatively complete. And that was what I got of, like, for instance, the second Talisman album. From that Talisman album onward, I was now finding a placement of being me, but also delivering what's expected of me. Like, people wanted me to be a hard rock singer, but I was sneaking in all these influences that I wasn't able to fit in before. I can't be soulful and R&B-ish sounding on an Yngwie or an Axel Rudy Pell record, but I could do it with Talisman. And I had a band called Slam that was really funk oriented. Really, it was like marrying Prince and Dan Reed and Extreme and those kinds of influences in one band as well. So I was able to now finally be me, and that's where I could truly started hearing and feeling the essence of my voice coming forward.
Is that something that you feel you would continue to, I guess, bring into your current bands that sort
I
of,
never
or
stopped.
you never
From that
stop?
point, I never stopped. I just continued. Once I found my voice, or that voice, I found a way to inject that into everything. And I'll never forget one time I read an interview that Mike Portnoy did about the Sons of Apollo thing. I don't know if he was referring to being on tour or if it was referring to the actual album itself, but he said Jeff is I've never heard a singer able to inject soul into prog music. He's probably one of the first, because prog music is, for the most part, it's very, I don't want to say sterile, but it doesn't really have the soulful movingness that R&B and soul music has. And so when he said that, it made sense that I naturally do that without thinking. It's just part of my DNA and my creativity, and whatever I'm working on, it's automatically injected whether or not I'm trying.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of, I mean, you're now flash forwarding. You came off the back of working with Sons of Apollo, which was a fantastic band. Two great studio records, debut in 2020, and now you're in Art of Anarchy, which is a band that I was aware of, and a fan of their previous two records with two different singers with different styles too, with Scott Weiland, who was an absolute chameleon in himself, almost like a David Bowie meets John Lennon meets Jim Morrison
Yeah.
kind of vibe. One of my all-time favorite singer-songwriters, an underappreciated melody maker, if you ask me. And then second record with Scott Stapp of Creed, and then now you enter the picture. And what I love about this record is you immediately put your imprint on this record. It's very much your collaboration with that sound. So if people are familiar with the previous two Art of Anarchy records, you can hear there's a definite correlation there, a definite streamline from that, a narrative that continues
Yeah.
on musically from those last two records into this one. But with you there telling those stories now, and it sounds great, seamless, really.
Dude, I love that you noticed that. And this is another reason why I was excited when we were creating the music, when we were just even the earlier stages before we even knew if it was going to be a full-time thing. We put the whole idea of moving forward and bringing it back to the fold just on a writing level. Let's just write and see what happens. But exactly what you said, the fact that I can try to embody two completely different style singers, and now we move forward without necessarily changing it, saying, okay, well, they're absolutely different. I can actually culminate the two and then put what I put into it, and it just expands a little more. It gives me a chance to do those older songs with them live, which we will be doing, but it doesn't sound alien. It doesn't sound completely out of context. And I've used this analogy before, and I'm sure maybe I'm not sure, but I'm assuming maybe one of the reasons Sammy Hagar didn't want to do any of their older Roth material is because his voice is too different. They have their own complete different styles, and maybe he just thought maybe it doesn't sound the way people are going to expect it to sound, and maybe they won't like it. Who knows if that's the reality? But that they never really did any older songs. They did maybe Jump or Panama, and they really just kept it to the Hagar years when Hagar was there. And Dave would never do any Sammy songs because, again, it's not his wheelhouse. But for me, I love the fact that I can actually I can kind of cross blend the two former singers and add what I normally do. And now I've added two elements of what I normally don't do in extending the future of Art of Anarchy.
What I love about that too is I personally don't feel, and I mean this with all due respect, that Art of Anarchy's had a real chance to really show themselves as a live touring entity.
Right.
And I feel like now with you there, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that now there'd be more shows, more tours, and people can really get to hear the music and maybe go back and revisit those last two records, and then
Yeah.
go into this one with a fresh mindset and really find a, I don't know, really it's almost like a point of rediscovery for a lot of people that maybe aren't so familiar with what came before, and you're helping people be reintroduced to this
Yeah.
band, which is great.
Well, there's no disrespect in what you said because it's exactly how I felt. I'm almost verbatim. I felt the same when I was talking to Ron about this before we started even working on the first song. I thought this band was cheated. I love the music. I love both records. And I feel because of the circumstances, what happened with the singers or what the singers did or whatever this, I'm not going to get into any of that. The fact that the band itself is cheated. And I would love to be responsible or help be responsible for moving the band into the future so they can continue or and possibly get that recognition that I feel they deserved. And if I could be part of that, it's going to be a nice pat in the back for me as well, because I'm kind of I'm heading it. I'm in the front. I'm helping them write and create and moving the band into the future. And if people accept us and want to see more of us, mission accomplished.
How integral were you to the writing sessions for this record? Was this something that you came in and they already had music written, or was this one of those situations where you co-wrote some things from scratch with them?
No, everything is already pre-written, and that's how it is for pretty much every band. I kind of stopped getting involved with the music side of writing because sure, I have ideas, and my ideas usually stem from hearing something already and say, hey, try this or double that. That's more arrangement. I'm not going to sit there with my limited skills as a guitar player, as a keyboardist, and try to come up with something that's mind blowing that somebody like Derek Sherinian could play on keyboards or somebody like Bumblefoot could play on guitar. I'm not going to say, hey guys, why don't we try this? Like, are you kidding me? What are we back in elementary school? So I'm going to give that power to the ones who play their instruments and who master their craft as instrumentalists. Let them write the riffs. Let them write the music. Let me do what I do. I feel my forte is melodies and lyrics. So let me do what I do. You do what you do, and we'll put these two together, and we'll see what we can manage together.
That's wonderful. And you bring up Bumblefoot, who you had worked with prior to this project, of course, in Sons of Apollo. So, what was it like? Was he part of what brought you into this world?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was we were touring together at Sons of Apollo in 2018, and I was hearing and watching the drama unfolding with Art of Anarchy and him basically saying, yeah, I think that the band is done. And that was the first time I blurted out saying, man, what a bummer. I wish I could have been the first or the second singer. I wish I could hear what my voice would have sounded like with you guys. And it really just started from that, because it's kind of like a little throwing it out there and it sticking in the back of his brain. Brought up again in 2020 when we were all stuck at home, not knowing what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And the conversation came up again. And that's when he admitted that they continued writing with they had no agenda. They had no idea that they were going to continue. And and he just said, hey, why don't I send you a couple songs, work on them, tweet, do what you do. And let's see if we got something here. And that turned into us writing like 2 albums worth of material. It's crazy.
So this is definitely like a long-term project for you. This is
Yeah.
something that you're,
And that
yeah.
the difference between my involvement and me, the third Scott, if you want to call it that, stepping in, is the other two were kind of hired and convinced to join the fold. They were brought in and they were paid to be brought in. I didn't accept one dime. They didn't come to me saying, hey, we want to continue the band. Do you want to be our singer? I came to them saying, hey, do you guys want to put the band back together, I'd love to be the singer. So it started from there, and we continue it from there.
It's great. So, are there any songs in particular that stand out for you on this record? Because there's some to me that I think are
Yeah.
fantastic on this record.
Absolutely. There's some that just really just resonate so hard with me. One of them is actually a song co-written with John Moyer, the original bass player, a song called Rivals. I love the song. It's one of the songs that has kind of a groove. And I remember even when he sent it to us, because he was still part of this before we knew we were going to continue. And then he decided he's just going to put all his side things to bed, and he's just going to concentrate on Disturbed, which we all respect and we love him for it. But that one song Rivals, it just had that kind of groove, and it really got me going. So that's one of my favorites on the record. There's so many great songs on this record. I love Vilified as well. It's kind of dark and sluggish and drudged, whatever, if that's a word.
Mhm.
But the message behind it is exactly as you see in the video of it. It's about PTSD. It's about being vilified for a person that you became because of another circumstance.
That's great. And Echo Your Madness, that's probably my favorite on the record. Do you have any thoughts about that one?
I love it. It's a full power song, but it's got the kind of broken. I love when the songs have dynamics and dimensions. I mean, the verse, I'm basically singing with more of a whispery kind of um raspy voice, and then it's just full on power and just balls to the wall kind of stuff. I love the different dynamics of that particular song with all the crazy little effects and stuff that Ron's doing on guitar. It's a great song.
That's one of the things that stood out to me is like I like vocally and just musically the dynamics on the song and the fact the way you utilize your voice on that one, like you already mentioned, in that sort of dynamic approach. Because once your voice has got a lot of weight to it, so the second you rein that back in, and then you just go full throttle for the choruses, it's just to me it's even more impactful. And
Thanks.
to me, it really suits to the strengths of the band and yourself, really.
I appreciate that. And that's one of the things I also, because we are gearing up for some live shows. We're going to get our feet wet and get out there and just see what we got as a band, and just show people that it's real. It's not a real tour book yet. We're doing just a run of shows. But I told the guys I don't want to go cold into the rehearsals, not having any experience singing the older songs that we're planning on doing. So luckily Ron had all that stuff with the vocals removed, kind of karaoke versions of them, sent them to me so I could kind of demo them at home and get used to what my voice sounds like singing them. So I also hear them back, go, I'm a little too strong there. I need to pull it back, because I don't want to be verbatim to the way either Scott sang. I don't want to try to sound like Weiland. I don't want to try to sound like Stapp, but I also want to pay homage and tribute to the songs of what people are used to hearing them. So trying to find that perfect balance, I absolutely was able to do that before I even got to rehearsal.
Great. So you're well prepared. You're ready to go, and it's going
Oh
to be a
yeah.
great time. And there'll be a tour. There's a tour coming up, which right? Is that right?
Well, the run of shows that we have are in March. It's about 8 shows, I believe, and then it's a kind of, we're going to call an audible. It really depends on if the album resonates. It depends on if the older fans accept me. It depends on if we find new fans with the culmination of this new lineup. There are a lot of factors that we need to make sure are working before we book a year-long tour, and then we show up and 50 people in the audience. We want to make sure that people want this band. We want to know that there's a demand for this band before we just go out there and force feed it.
Right on. If you don't mind me asking, just as we conclude here, is there still something more that you desire to do, like in your musical like path in your career? Do you feel like you've made your greatest achievement yet? Do you feel like there's still something that you have to prove as an artist?
Well, yeah, I certainly, I'm not, I don't fall into the category of a lot of artists that decide that it's a waste of time to write and record new material. I still have a lot in me that I want to do, and I want to do it for me. If not for nothing, if nobody buys it, nobody's interested. I can't just rest on my laurels. I can't just say I've been there, done that. I'm just right into the sunset, singing all the stuff that I've already done. To me, that's it. I don't feel complete. It's the same as I don't feel complete being in a one genre band. I need to be able to have that creative flow. Um, Music is not only my life and my career, but it's also my therapy. It's what gets me through the day. And so creating is something that excites me. And who doesn't want to have an excitement for the next days that come and the next years that come? So of course I will continue creating and writing. And again, it's not, I'm not trying to, I'm not reaching for that brass ring anymore. I'm not trying to be a household name. At this age, I don't think I ever will. But at least I know internally, inside, I'm actually still, I'm filling that void as I continue creating into the future.
I get the
By the way,
sense.
I
What?
love that photo or the album cover over your head. I could see the
Yeah,
Freddie image behind you.
made in heaven. Yeah.
Made yeah, made in heaven. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. He keeps it makes you feel empowered, really. Having Freddie, whether it be through any sort of imagery, it's almost like empowering. You go,
Dude, I hear
this
you.
is the guy.
I absolutely hear you, and I absolutely treasure my friendship with Brian and Roger. And one of my biggest regrets is I never got to see Freddie live with Queen or got to meet the man, but was befriending the other guys, the other brothers in that band of his. That to me is it just it's I don't know. I have no words for it, as I get tongue tied when I think about it.
I get that. I get that. And again, Jeff, I do appreciate your time. You've done some great work. I've had the pleasure of seeing you in Trans-Siberian Orchestra. To me, you are someone that people respect, and to me that is of utmost importance, is the fact that I think people hear you or your voice, and they hear your name and they go, oh yeah, that's right, like that guy is the real deal. And to me, you are the real deal. So I
Man,
do appreciate
I
your
owe you
time.
money for that. I owe you money for that compliment. It means a lot to hear that. And to me, there's no better reward. There's no money. There's no gold album. There's no accolade that rings true or rings better in my ears than somebody hearing what I do and that resonates to them. So I mean, that's my ultimate goal in life, is to be able to do what I do and people dig it.
Yeah, and also thank you again. Seriously, appreciate your time, Jeff. And also, you also have the I think it's pretty funny. You're the only artist that I've had on here, actually, just in general, that I appreciate, who happens to share a birthday with me, which I think is pretty cool too. So
Get out of here, fellow
yeah,
Scorpio.
exactly. Yeah, November 4th. So I think that's
Yeah, but
pretty cool.
you look like my son's age, so
Yeah, I always say I'm like an old soul in a young person's body, that kind of thing. So
I
I mean I love this I love what you're doing, and I'm here to continue waving the flag for music that I really
that's
am
amazing.
passionate about. So
It seems like
having
we have a lot in common, and it makes sense that we have the same birthday. Because I grew up the same way. When I was maybe 9 or 10 or 12, I listened to music from the 50s. I listened to a genre that was way past me, but because of what my mother was listening to, or whatever, I loved it. It was great in my ears. It wasn't like, oh, that's old, that's not my music. I only want to listen to what's currently going on now. And it seems like you were cut from the same cloth.
yeah, you connected with it, you resonated with it, you couldn't explain why, and you didn't even think
Right.
about it. You just did it, and it was
Exactly.
like, oh well, it is what it is. And
And that's
and
why I
there,
love Queen so much, because they
yeah.
they tapped into so many earlier influence, from going back to the Roaring Twenties, if you want to go back that far, to all that stuff in between, to Nat King Cole, all these things, Chuck Berry, Johnny B. Good, all that stuff they did. They just utilize all their influences of music from way back when. And man, that's what makes this such a beautiful thing to do for a living.
Hey, well, thank you so much, Jeff, for your time and your respect, and for I'm doing this little Sonic Dorms thing, just trying to grow this thing out as a platform for to host respectful artists such as yourselves, sharing music
Thank you, man.
and involving people in the education, the historical aspect of it as well. So having you on here really is meaningful to me. So thank you so much for that, and I wish
It's
you
my pleasure.
nothing but continued success. I really do feel like you're tapping into a new stage of your career, especially, I mean, starting with the Sons of Apollo thing, even to me, to me, it's almost like you're just getting started all over again. I think there's going to be some great new stuff on the horizon for you, including the Art of Anarchy stuff. So, again,
I
best
better
wishes to you.
I better tap quickly, because the blue plate special age is right around the corner.
Yeah, I mean, you got this. I'm telling you. And thank you so much. I wish you nothing but the best success with this record. Check out Let There Be Anarchy out there, everybody. It's a fantastic record by Art of Anarchy. Jeff Scott Soto, who's an incredible vocalist, now in that band, going to be waving the flag for them from here on out. It's going to be
Right
great.
on.
So
Thank you,
Uh,
Max. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. I hope you have a great rest of your year, man, and much success. I hope to catch you on a show with Art
We'll
of
see you
Anarchy
out there.
sometime. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you out on the road.
All right. Until next time.